Hello, loyal listeners, and welcome to this Christmas edition of the SOS-Radio.com podcast. I'm your host, Jason Knight, and I hope this episode finds you wrapped in your favorite blanket or terry cloth robe, sipping on eggnog or maybe a nice mulled cider. Go ahead and light a Yule log. Warm yourself. Get comfortable and get lost in those twinkling Christmas lights. Now, close your eyes and prepare yourself for this episode of the podcast. And Merry Christmas.
I just want to say that was terrible advice for anyone that's listening to this in their car.
Again, welcome everybody. I'm Jason Knight. I'm joined as always by my fellow SOSers and brothers in arms, Mr. Dave Black. Say hello.
Hey. Merry Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and Boxing Day as well.
He likes to encompass
holidays,
major religion. Mr. Joe Erie. Joe, how are you?
Good. How about you guys?
Producer Oscar Spector.
Hey.
And since this is a Christmas edition of the SOS-Radio.com podcast, we have a special guest. I want to make sure and get his name right. He is using a pseudonym. We have Minister Sal. Minister Sal is a self-proclaimed pagan ritual expert and enthusiast. And later on in the SOS-Radio.com podcast, he's going to introduce us and educate us on the possible pagan origins of this, my favorite holiday, Christmas. Minister Sal, please say hello.
Hello.
Just to let you guys know, he is using the pseudonym because he is a leader in his industry, and some of the views aren't accepted by mainstream, and we don't want to screw anything up for him. So Minister Sal isn't his real name, but he's using a pseudonym for those reasons. So we'll hear from him periodically throughout the podcast. He'll chime in whenever he feels he can. But later on in the show, second segment, he'll whisk us down pagan memory lane and teach us about the origins of this holiday. So, how things been, guys? What's going on?
Pretty great.
Good?
Just rapping.
Wrapping gifts?
Yeah, just
No, Dr. Dre.
Dr. Dre.
work.
Understood. Before we really get into this episode...
I went to Florida.
That's right. I'm going to Florida
And you invited,
next week.
and I declined.
I'm taking my family to St. Augustine to do some ghost hunting.
Oh.
Up the Panhandle next to Jacksonville.
It's actually the opposite side of the Panhandle.
But it is in the Panhandle.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Augustine's all the way over the other side of the state from the Panhandle.
Is it? Well, it's only my third time there, so what do you want from me?
Augustine's like the far east coast of Florida, like the northeast coast.
Yeah, northeast Panhandle.
No, the Panhandle is in the northwest.
Regardless, that's where I'm going.
The Panhandle's like the part that looks like the handle of a pan. Hence the reason they call it.
Oh, the top
Panhandle.
of Florida. Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to be at the top of Florida by Jacksonville, not the Panhandle, Joe Erie.
Yeah.
Do they sell panhandles there, though?
They don't, but there's a lot of... It's
They
the country's oldest city. The Castillos de San Marcos is there, which is very haunted.
Don't hurt yourself.
The Fountain of Youth. It actually really is a haunted city. So
I did visit the Coral Castle when I was in Homestead.
Which, the way it was created, Minister Sal used to live in Homestead and actually took me by the Coral Castle years ago. The way they say it was
the guy
created.
was a mason. He was just using levers and stuff.
And he also used ley lines and anti-gravity. But anyway, what I wanted to...
The most interesting thing to me there were the agama lizards that were running around.
We've always been herpetologists, so...
Those were cool.
Before we really jump into this episode of the podcast, I want to issue an apology to Dave Black and Joe Erie. For the last, 20 years, I've been miscategorizing you guys. I've been calling you mediums, and I think with the term medium, it comes with some preconceived notions that people call bullshit on. But in all actuality, you guys aren't mediums. Joe, tell me about the term you discovered during your research for this show. Tell me about the term clairsensitive.
Well, trying to figure myself out and get an understanding of what's going on in my mind, or am I crazy? Is this normal? Like, is there anything I can call myself? Started searching online didn't know if I was a medium, didn't know if I was ultra sensitive to anything. I found different categories of things like, there's mediums, there's clairvoyance. There's a bunch of different things.
Bunch of different classifications of psychics.
Yeah, bunch of different classifications of psychics. Something that I found interesting was when I found clairsensitive. Well, clairsensitive, it's the ability to feel energies that the clairvoyant or clairaudient can see and hear. They can touch and manipulate the aura and energy fields of life. The ability to give clairsensitive a type of radar to feel energy from distance and tell the difference between positive and negative energies. Most faith healers and energy workers must have some level of clairsensitivity in order to ferret out the negative energies that they dispose of.
And if listeners go back to technically the second SOS-radio.com podcast where we introduced ourselves as hosts to the world, one thing both you guys agreed on is, it's an energy, and no, you don't channel dead people, you don't talk to dead people, you don't see dead people, but you feel and sense energies. And both of you guys also touched on, you could tell whether or not it's positive or negative. So it sounds like this term, clairsensitive, describes your abilities more accurately than just the general term medium. And I want to let you guys know that I have corrected that on iTunes and on the website, all our podcast download locations. I have corrected that. So
I'm not 100% sure, but I'm fairly certain that's a newer term, like in the last 10 years or so.
Which it might be.
Yeah. But it definitely better
because I'd never heard it
described
before.
it to a T of what, everything how we describe it, what we feel, to a T.
Yeah, I don't get into the whole auras and all that kind of stuff, but I definitely
think aura was tying into just human energy.
Yeah.
Energy.
Worldly energy.
Sensing that energy.
So I just want to let you know that I stand corrected, and I did fix that term online where it counts. So I wanted to clarify and address that. Mr. Lincoln Watch, my underlying theme for this podcast, nothing to report so far since starting this. So far, so good. Maybe it's working. Remember, this was my whole goal of this podcast, is to kind of throw light onto these beings and hopefully banish whatever myself and my daughter are experiencing. However, Joe, something happened to you.
Yeah, I had a bit of an experience as well. I think both me and Joe discussed that, when you're not really talking about this stuff, paying attention to it, it kind of goes dormant.
Correct, yeah.
And now that we're talking about it again, we're going to start experiencing things again. So
Joe, go ahead first.
Basically, what he was saying, when you're not doing it, it stops. But as soon as you start up, it starts up again. And when we started getting back into this, I started seeing, shadow figures.
Where at?
My house, places we recorded at. I haven't, seen seen beings. It's just shadow people.
So
I've been seeing the shadow people,
kind of
the peripheral vision. But I've seen shadow people.
So it's starting to come back to you.
It's starting to come back again.
Dave, what did you experience?
Well, I as a side business, as you know, I collect silver and gold coins, and I look for things to resell and whatever. So I stop at estate sales, garage sales, that kind of thing. So the other day, I stopped at an estate sale in, I think it was in Arlington Heights or something like that. Anyway, I went into the house, and there was a part of the house that was kind of like, there wasn't anything to see there. There was one room upstairs with a bunch of kids' stuff in it, and I got some pretty weird vibes in that room. And then when I walked to the other rooms, one of the rooms was like the hallway was blocked off by a big desk, but I just kind of snuck back there anyways, and it was pretty intense in that upper part of the house. I'm fairly certain whoever passed away to leave the estate probably died in that room. And it was a bedroom, a master bedroom. So
any shadow people?
No, it was the middle of the day, so I didn't really experience anything. I don't think I've ever experienced what would be called shadow people. Every once in a while you catch something out of the peripheral or whatever, but I wouldn't describe it in that way.
Okay.
Another weird thing, too, is I had a lot of people contact me, like cousins, aunts, friends, that I haven't spoken to for a while, and sending me a text message. Hey, for some weird reason, I was interested in, kind of had an idea to go to a cemetery if you wanted to check it out, or had felt that they had to tell me a story about, a house that was possessed, or just random ghost stories just out of nowhere.
Since we started doing
it.
The podcast. Huh.
Yeah, which is,
I always say,
strange.
The universe knows. Well, very good. I just wanted to do the Lincoln report. Well, as promised, last episode, the first half of this show, we're going to talk about our second location that we ever investigated. Something I consider to be probably the most haunted structure that we've investigated.
I would say technically it was the first thing we actually investigated.
Outside of Robinson Woods.
Yeah, but Robinson Woods wasn't so much an investigation as it was like
a discovery.
Just kind of poking around. Like we weren't like actively looking into historical research and that kind of stuff. I think
true.
Morseland is really the first, our kind of like our flagship, if you will, our first real investigation where we had our own location that no one else had studied or researched or done any work at.
So this is the first out of, what did we say in that first podcast? Nearly 100.
There's probably over 100
Never
places.
before heard of the haunted locations in and around Chicago. So this is our number one. And we're saying Morseland. It's the Morseland Music Room. Just Morseland. But it's in Rogers Park in Chicago. 1218 to 1220 West Morse Avenue. It's MORSE, Morse Avenue.
It's literally like a few steps away from Sheridan Road.
Yeah.
Which used to be the road that went to Fort Sheridan, which was a military base. So it's one of the oldest roads in Chicago. Used to be an Indian trail. And I have all sorts of theories about that.
To be covered in another podcast, these old Indian trails are notoriously haunted today. But yeah, Morseland Music Room, whatever you want to call it, 1218 to 1220 West Morse Avenue in Chicago's Rogers Park neighborhood. Built in 1925 by B. Leo Stieff and Company. Had many businesses within that address over the however many.
I think originally it was a Piggly Wiggly.
75 years. Am I doing the calculations right?
Didn't you say a stream ran underneath?
There's a branch of, I believe it's a branch of Lake Michigan, cuts off, and it does run under that street, under Morse, and it does run directly through the Morseland Music Room structure. And you can see it in the basement. We lifted up that trap, like manhole cover, and there's rushing water right there. And what theories? I mean, just name a theory when it comes to rushing water, the energy it creates, and paranormal activity.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, built in 1925 by B. Leo Stieff and Company. Many, many businesses have resided within the structure over the 75 plus years that it's been around. As Dave mentioned, a Piggly Wiggly. There was a butcher shop, a few Chinese restaurants, a Dungeons and Dragons TSR warehouse. Very eclectic past.
There's a dojo.
Dojo. There you go, a dojo.
And then most recently there was like a yoga studio or something upstairs.
A Pilates.
In the room that we specifically experienced stuff. And I believe the downstairs had remained a bar, nightclub, restaurant.
Yeah, and it was like Pilates and dojo upstairs over the past
So now
years.
the building's completely vacant. I have not even been able to get a hold of the realtor. I've left them
ditto.
a couple of messages and nothing.
It's an enigma. It really is. We know, and we'll tell the stories today.
And I didn't even say anything about supernatural. I'm just like, hey, I'm interested in the property.
Yeah.
Give me a call
No one
back.
gets back.
Yeah.
And a lot of the past owners have had bad luck.
Yeah.
The Chinese restaurants went out of business.
The Morseland itself, the
Morseland
last
Music
place
Room.
it was, owes $100,000 in back taxes.
Tax evasion. You got defrauding the who's the people that come out and investigate for food sanitation. Health inspector. Thank you, health inspector. Defrauding health inspector. They just came into really bad kind of luck, and over the past probably 20 years, no one's really stuck around very long.
And of course, we tried to contact the original owners that we dealt with when we researched it, and they didn't really want to talk about it.
Absolutely refused to bring up the past about Morseland.
And I don't think it has anything to do with the haunting. I think it just has something to do with the fact that maybe they're not happy with the way things
Just
went
bad
down,
vibes.
or just don't want to remember it.
They don't want to
whatever.
dredge up the past. So take us back to the beginning. You were doing stand-up.
I was doing stand-up comedy.
Stand-up comedy. You found yourself in the Morseland Music Room. What year was this?
I started doing stand-up comedy in December of 1997. Morseland Music Room was one of the first places I ever performed at. In fact, I think it was the second place I ever got on stage at. And I'd made some friends with the other comedians and stuff like that. So our first excursion out there to Robinson Woods, I believe, was the very beginning. It was, I think, January 28th or 29th of 1998.
It sounds about right.
Is when I have the original photographs with the dates on the back of them. But I think that's the night that we got that first picture of the thing in the corner in that overexposed photo. Yeah. We went back, I believe, on February 2nd, first or second, like that night, and got more photos. And I think we went back the next night after that, or that was the second time we went. So those photos were delivered to me the night I went up at Morseland Music Room to perform. My friend Jay, who worked at a Wolf Camera, developed those photographs, brought them to me at the open mic, literally minutes before I was to get on stage, for like maybe my 7th or 8th, and probably not even like 4th or 5th time ever on stage. So I open up this pack of pictures, and the first thing I come across 2 or 3 pictures in is this puff of smoke in one of the trees. And my heart sank, and I got that like flood of adrenaline through my head, like, okay, this is real. This is something. This isn't, an accident. This isn't, smoke. This isn't breath. This is something. The next picture showed the same puff of mist moving through the trees in the same photograph, like same, basically same shot. Then a couple pictures later, it's pictures of me being taken pictures of by you,
by me, yeah.
And this stuff is surrounding me and right in my face, and it like at this point I'm freaking out, like tears streaming down my face, and like
again right before you're about to go on stage for your 4th or 5th time in your life.
And Jay, he was kind of almost indifferent. He's just kind of like, whatever.
Now Jay is John.
John, yeah,
from the Wolf Camera. John was referred to as Jay, right? Not me,
right? A different Jay. So I'm freaking out. And I'm like, I need to share this with whoever will listen to me. And so I go to the bartender, Bridget, who was one of the owners. And I'm like, oh my God, look at this. And I start showing her the pictures and stuff. And she's just kind of like, yeah, this place is haunted. And I was like...
She's all nonchalant.
Yeah, she's all nonchalant about it. So I believe I went on stage literally a few seconds after I saw these pictures. And I actually did well. I got off stage, and that's the point. I believe I rushed upstairs to call you and tell you about these pictures
on the notorious payphone.
Yeah, and
which we'll get to.
And so after she told me that the place was haunted, I believe I called you first. Then I went back downstairs, showed her the pictures. She's like, yeah, this place is haunted. And I'm like, this is why I'm feeling weird stuff upstairs there. I thought I was just freaking out, but I was feeling some pretty strong vibes in that hallway.
The second floor hallway of the main hallway, second floor.
Of the Morseland, yeah. So I go back downstairs, show her the pictures, and she's like, yeah, this place is haunted. Fast forward to the following Monday night. I believe that open mic was on a Tuesday night. The following Monday night, 6 days later, and I believe in that time we had been to Robinson Woods probably 2 or 3 more times.
Yeah.
And so we were in there after closing on a Monday night, 1 o'clock in the morning, walking around with a tape recorder. I remember this big old brick tape recorder that my dad gave me. It was like from the 60s. It was like the first tape recorder that ever existed. It was like this huge cassette recorder. But it was like solid and it worked really well. And I had like a little external like Radio Shack microphone for it, whatever. So I'm narrating into the microphone like, oh, this is the way the room's laid out, and this is what we're seeing, and this is what we're experiencing. And I was talking into the microphone while you had said something, like there was a sound in the background, and I didn't hear it because I was talking over it at the time. You said to me, I think I just heard a little kid laughing.
Oh man!
And we hear this whole
now.
thing on the tape. I got to find the tape, and I've moved like 6 times since then. So, and I specifically said, like, I don't know. I heard it, but I was talking at the time, so it sounded like maybe a dog barking outside or something like that.
Right.
A few seconds later,
we stop.
We stop.
We're listening.
And, well, this is what happens. You said I just felt like the temperature drop in here. I repeated into the microphone, like, we feel like the temperature just dropped in here. And literally, like a microsecond later, very clearly,
as clear as a bell,
from the back of an empty room, he,
little kid laughing at us.
Sounds like a 5 or 6 year old kid giggling, and then like we didn't even say anything to each other.
We started pushing each other out of the way.
Pushing each other out of the way.
And what did we almost trip over?
Tears streaming down our face.
What did we almost fall over?
The
little desk.
Oh,
the
yeah,
little kid's desk. The school desk.
Yeah.
Sitting right there.
And
which I don't even remember seeing going in. But
I remember mentioning the desks on
the desk.
Okay. Anyways, so we barrel down the hallway and start pounding on the door where Mike, the owner, is, and he comes to the door like, "What the hell is wrong with you guys?" And we fall into the room.
We just heard a little kid laughing at us from the back of an empty room.
And he's like, "Oh, it's just, the pipes make weird noise." I'm like, "Pipes don't laugh. Pipes don't fucking laugh."
That's right.
And we were like hysterical,
hyperventilating, eyes watering.
So a few minutes later, we're like, "Okay, let's compose ourselves and get back in there and see what happens." And then at the end of the hallway, that fucking phone starts ringing.
Every night. Was it like 2?
It was like 2 o'clock in the morning.
2 or 2:10.
Something like that.
Every single night.
Every night this payphone would ring and ring and ring.
And you pick it up?
And there's no dial tone, there's no sound, but it, like, you put your phone up to you put it up to your ear, and it sounds like somebody's. You can't necessarily hear breathing or anything, but it sounds like somebody's listening on the other end.
I remember this like it was yesterday.
Like just like that. Like it wasn't like a dead silence like you would hear on a dead phone.
Right.
It was like
there's a difference. If anyone out there could imagine this, there is a difference.
You could hear like a little hiss or background noise of like ambient sound of a room or whatever,
or another world.
And there was that one fucking spot on the floor in that hallway that was
ice.
Yeah, that's where like anytime I stood on it, like just like I'd well up with like terror. So we went back in that room, and I think did we just leave the tape recorder there and go back downstairs, or what was it?
Well, we were there a few nights recording, tape recorder, and then the owners allowed us to actually run from the house sound system. Remember, this was a concert venue as well.
Yeah.
Albeit small, but they had tons of AV equipment. They allowed us to run microphones from their house sound system upstairs into the child laughter room, and downstairs into the notorious basement. And I remember distinctly, me, you, my girlfriend at the time. Sorry, Katie, my girlfriend at the time. We were sitting on...
Was that Megan?
It was Megan, yeah. We were sitting on a couch. It had to be well after 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. And we had the microphones run upstairs. We had the other microphone run downstairs, hooked up through the house speaker system, so we could hear everything. Now, completely empty venue. No one was there but us and maybe one of the owners, either Bridget or Mike.
Yeah.
Just like us three and one of the owners. No one upstairs, no one downstairs. Couldn't be by law from zoning. All of a sudden, I'm drifting off. I'm kind of falling asleep in my girlfriend at the time's lap. You were, I think, looking at a picture book or something like that, if I remember correctly, one of the ghost picture books that we had.
Yeah.
When all of a sudden, we started hearing voices coming from the empty downstairs. Sounded like 5-6 people having an indistinguishable conversation. You remember this? And then upstairs, we had a tape recorder upstairs as well as the house mic. We heard the billiard balls, the pool balls, being clacked around like someone was throwing these balls around. So we jumped up, flew upstairs. Not a ball was moved, nothing was touched, and we caught it on recording. We recorded.
I remember we would set up the balls in a certain way to see if they would move or anything, and they never did.
Never moved.
You always heard them.
Heard it every single time.
Yeah, you always heard them click, clack, click, clack. When it wasn't like a loud, obvious sound, it was very like faint and not very distinct. But you're definitely that's definitely pool balls here.
Yeah.
And we would get that like.
Exactly.
Like just like the
but multiple people talking, like they were having a conversation.
Yeah, it would be like there was a party or commotion going on up there.
And in the basement.
Yeah,
and in the basement.
But mostly that upstairs room was the focus of most of the activity there.
Yeah, and if you remember back in the day, back in Morseland's the building's history, that upstairs area, which was maybe what would you say? 1,000 square feet, maybe.
Yeah, they said it was like tenement housing. Or
it was
something?
tenement housing. They had this maybe roughly 1,000 square foot rectangular room sectioned into multiple, almost single family.
They're almost like cells.
Yeah, kind of like cells, little individual rooms. Maybe they had a cot. That was about it.
Yeah,
and almost like that whorehouse that we went into.
Oh yeah, that's right. What
From
restaurant was that?
Adobo Grill.
The Adobo above the Adobo Grill.
Well, it was another location they had downtown.
Yeah, the Italian joint.
Yeah, I can't remember.
It was like the old whorehouse from like the 20s.
Yeah, it was above the Italian restaurant.
Yeah, he actually opened up the door. They said they didn't go up there for like 20, 30 years.
Yeah, but it was even smaller than that. I mean, we're talking 1,000 square foot rectangular room broken into multiple
little units.
Cells, little units, yeah. Very shoddily constructed. Some people said that disease broke out up there and
tiny living
people
quarters,
died. Real tiny tenement, as Dave said, underprivileged living quarters. So,
but that was hearsay. We don't know if that's real or not.
Yeah.
The experience. Okay, so. I'd like to I wonder if we can just draw a map of what it looked like up there, so we can put it on the website. But
we can floor plan.
Okay, so this is basically how it was laid out. Downstairs, the room was kind of U-shaped because right in the middle of the building, from the front, was a stairwell that ran upstairs because there were two different addresses. There was the downstairs bar that had one address, then there was the upstairs apartment. Whatever was up there, it was living quarters at some point, or an office or whatever. So there was the stairwell that went up, which we never actually used that stairwell because that front door was always locked. So when you're in the bar downstairs, when you walk into the room, you're walking in on the basically if you're facing the building, you're walking in on the right side of the building. Which would be the east side of the building. You walk in, and there's the bar right there, this big long bar that goes all the way to the back of the room, and then right behind that bar, there were bathrooms. Yep. So the room, imagine it is like a horseshoe shape. The other side of the room that's separated by the stairwell, on the other side of the stairwell, opposite the bar, is the sound booth. And then there's stairs that go upstairs, where you can access the stairwell that goes upstairs from the inside. So, on the other side of that room, that was the performance venue. So there's a stage on the far wall, right next to where the bathrooms were, and then there was like the seating area. So that's what the downstairs was. It was an open floor plan, basically, separated by that stairwell. Then you go upstairs. Now, the upstairs was a series of hallways. When you walked to the upstairs, there was a hallway that went straight back to the office. Then there was a hallway that went around the corner to a fire escape and a bathroom. On your right side was basically there was a dining room and a bedroom of sorts. That's where the bands used to stay. And then there was
a bar up there.
I'm describing the east side right now.
Okay.
So you walk in. That's like right when you come to the top of the stairs. That's the hallway with the weird spot. That's the hallway with the phone on the wall. When you walk to the end of that hallway, there's a door. That's where the office is. When you turn right at the end of that hallway, that was where the bathroom was and the fire escape. And there was a room. There was basically a room walled off on that right side as well. When you walk around that corner, there was a boarded up door where there was access to the room. And then right to the right, when you walk up the stairs, would be the entrance to that dining room area and the bedroom area, where supposedly the bands used to stay when they were traveling or whatever overnight. And then there was that dining room area as well. I'll get back to that in a moment. Other side of the room, if you walk up to the stairs, go to the left, there is like a small bar area and like a little seating room. Because when you walk up this, when you walk up the stairwell, it's literally putting you like right in the middle of the building. So if you could imagine, you're in the middle of an H kind of thing. On the right side of the H is this band room, the office, the bathroom, and the dining room. On the left side of the H, you have the seating room on the lower part of the H with a little bar in it, and then separated by, like, it wasn't even really doors, it was kind of like a cage sort of ironwork sort of partition thing into the game room where the pool tables and the jukebox and all that stuff was.
That was the room that we got laughed at.
That was the room that we got laughed at us. Yeah. So that was basically the layout of the building. The downstairs was like a U-shaped horseshoe thing, bar on one side, is the performance space on the other, and then the upstairs was kind of H-shaped with, the office at the top of the H. Then right next to that was bathroom. Then alongside the right side of the H, you had the dining room and the bedroom. And then on the left side of the H, the seating area, small bar, and the game room. Now, one of the stories that we heard from one of the bartenders there was he was walking upstairs one night to close up. He was the last person in the building. And he went up to that bathroom in the upper part of the H, the right side of the H, if you will, right next down the hallway. Hallway's kind of L-shaped. You go straight up and then take a right, and it was like this sharp turn to the fire escape. And it was only like maybe 20 feet to the fire escape. But there was a bathroom there on the north side of that hallway. And he was going to, make sure the bathroom was in order, that it wasn't all messed up or anything.
Doing his closing duties.
And at that time, that dining room was not boarded up. There was a doorway across from the bathroom into that dining room area, which was like kind of a break room for the employees or whatever. And as he was coming out of the bathroom, turning around, out of the corner of his eye, he sees a table in the middle of the dining room slide out from the table.
A chair.
Slide out from the table. Yep. And he turns and looks, and he sees a man getting up from the table that he could see through. And the guy was wearing a hat, and he was in a business suit. He had a briefcase. This is the way he described the guy. And obviously he promptly left, freaked out, because he could see through the guy. He didn't say anything to him or anything. He was overcome with fear, and he left, and he got out of there.
Wow.
So one of the owners, Mike, who Bridget says, I don't believe in this stuff, Mike was always the guy in the sound booth.
Yes.
So the sound booth is right at basically the access point to the only stairs that go upstairs. And he is at the sound booth, once again, closing time, probably like 1:45 or whatever. And he goes upstairs, because, people would go up there and like hang out and smoke, probably make out, because it's dark and couches and stuff. I'm sure there was much more nefarious things going on there at times as well. So he goes upstairs just to see if anyone's hanging out up there, because it's closing time soon. And he notices this old man sitting in the little bar area upstairs, just sitting there, not doing anything. He's just sitting there on a bench. He takes note of the guy. Doesn't say anything to him. He just kind of like nods at him, takes note of him, goes back downstairs, finishing up whatever he was doing in the sound booth.
The only exit, if you will.
The only way to get downstairs, other than the fire escape, which an alarm would go off. And, it's getting close to time to close up. and all the people that are hanging out at the bar and downstairs, the stragglers, leave. And he's like, hey, I never saw that guy come downstairs. Goes upstairs, no guy, no one there, never came downstairs.
Wow.
When he tells the bartender and describes the guy to him, he's like, that's the same guy I saw.
Wow. The Morseland does it again.
And yeah, so he had that story about it. And those were the only two people I had talked to that specifically had said that they experienced something.
Outside of ourselves, of course.
Yeah, outside of ourselves. Or like, people like, oh, I hear footsteps, feel weird things, whatever. So our goal here was to be like, okay, we heard a little kid laughing. We saw the old man. We have reports of this old man being seen.
We saw we know people who saw the old man. Not us.
So we did everything we could. We took tons of pictures inside there, but we couldn't get any pictures.
But we did catch audio and video.
We got audio and video, but for me,
I want to talk. I do want to talk.
Well, this is the thing. For me, when it comes to audio and video, it proves it to me that there's something going on, but I don't feel like that's conclusive evidence to show to other people because it could be fake.
I'm sure the listeners want to know what we caught in the basement.
Right.
So, and the basement leads to kind of the apex of this story.
Right.
We all went down to the basement, and I actually believe Minister Sal was with us at this particular on this particular evening. Went down to the basement. I think there were still a few people left in the bar upstairs. It was just ourselves, however, in the basement. It was you, me, Sal, and I think a friend of ours, Tony. There was like 4 of us that went down to this basement. And we were armed with cameras and a video camera. Mm-hmm. And I think it was you who had the idea to let's turn all of the lights off and let's just start taking random photos and run the video at the same time to document. So we did that. And, I don't know, maybe for 2 or 3 minutes you see on video, you see just the flashes of the cameras. You hear our voices. You hear us kind of stumbling around in this litter-strewn basement.
Yeah.
But then we turn the lights on, and you say, well, that wasn't that bad. And all of a sudden, everyone's standing still. On video, this big black shadow comes into view. And it kind of wavers, it kind of moves, kind of sways left and right, and then it shoots out of frame to the right and disappears. We didn't see it.
I remember it being.
We didn't see it with our naked eyes.
Right. You see the shadows of all the objects in there, kind of falling across everything.
Yes.
And then you see this blob. It looks like a shadow, but it looks separate from shadows. If that makes sense. Remember that movie Attack the Block?
I do, yeah.
With the aliens that were so black that they just that you couldn't even see them, because
I feel like they were sucking in the light.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. It was like an absence of light.
Yes,
and it was kind of fuzzy on the edges. It almost reminds me of that Daffy Duck cartoon where he's trying to keep that big blob from covering up the screen.
Oh yeah.
And it
actually blotted out things behind it.
Yeah, it falls across everything. It kind of moves into the actual shadows and then kind of comes back out of it and moves away.
Yes. We actually had that. Do you remember we had that video taken? We had that tape taken to Viscom, which was the production company that famed now deceased Chicago ghost hunter Richard Crowe used to validate all of his videos and his followers' videos. And we brought that tape to Viscom, to one of the executives at Viscom, and he proofed it, and he watched it, and he put it through his tests, and he deemed that, yes, in fact, there is something there, and the video had not been tampered with.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to note.
Right. So as far as all the audio that we got there, like, if I listened to it today, like, I would be like, I don't know when this was, it's all like label and stuff, but it would be one of those things where it's like, because remember that one time we were watching a movie downstairs while we were letting the video run, and we kept hearing a baby crying on the audio.
Debunked.
Yeah, and we're like, oh yeah, that was in the movie. We were watching Dead Alive.
Yes.
Baby's Day Out.
Yeah.
But the time in question when we ran those house mics up, it was dead silent. There was no one there. There was no movies, no...
Fun story. One of the comedians that was in Baby's Day Out actually defriended me and blocked me on Facebook because he didn't like my political views.
Well, anyway, I can see why.
Yeah.
No, but I'm thinking of another instance. Upstairs, child laughing room is what I'm going to refer to it from now on. You and I, we got into this heated argument. We had been going to the Morseland for many, many nights consecutively, and things just kind of started dying out. And I started saying to you, this is bullshit. This place isn't haunted. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And you and I got into a pretty heated argument whether, yes, it is haunted, no, it's not haunted. And we were kind of in each other's face, kind of yelling at each other. Do you remember this?
I kind of, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we both felt like someone threw
bricks,
a wet blanket, a freezing cold blanket over us. And it stopped us dead in our tracks, stopped our sentences in our mouths. And we're like, oh, okay, we know you're here now. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
We reacted
I can't remember if we were legitimately arguing or if we were specifically doing it to try and get
knowing our turbulent relationship over the years. We probably were arguing, but it was intense, and it was saying, I'm here.
Yeah, and you can't feel shit most of the time.
Exactly.
Now, so our only experiences at that point were the Morseland and Robinson Woods, basically. I think we'd been to Bachelor's Grove once or twice in that time frame, too. But I specifically remember saying, okay, so I can get these pictures outside. So I started to think of it in, what photographically about outside is allowing these pictures to be shown. So the energy that's there that I can feel in Morseland, I can't get pictures of it. But then I look at the pictures and I see the reflection of the light, the flash coming off the chrome and the chairs
on the bar,
bar on the corner of the pool table,
and we can't accept that as evidence.
Right,
we just can't as an organization.
Because it's not evidence. It's just reflection. Yep. And you can see it in the picture. You can see the flash bouncing off things. Exactly. So I started to think, okay, well, this stuff isn't visible to the naked eye, so it's probably hard to get on film because I've taken tons of pictures of when I know it's there and don't get anything. But maybe there's just a certain amount of there's a certain way that the light has to hit it for it to show up on film. Perhaps, maybe it has something to do with the outdoor temperature at the time. Maybe it has something to do with the barometric pressure in the air or the humidity or something like that. But maybe for an instant, when that flash hits it in the right way, it squeezes out some water vapor or it heats up or reacts in some way that it becomes visible on the film. So that night, I remember specifically thinking about this. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go outside and see if I can get it to come outside and get some pictures of it. So what do? I go outside. The first thing I do...
In the parking lot.
In the parking
lot, yeah.
Right next door, and I take a picture of that wall where right outside of the wall of the little
child laughing room. Yeah.
And the first thing that shows up is a big-ass cloud of mist right outside the wall.
Mist, trace energy, exactly.
And then there was a second picture of it as well. So... Several nights later, I was there. I think on my own. Actually, I was because I didn't. I think I was in the city doing comedy somewhere else, and I decided to stop by. So I once again, I'm going to see if I can get more pictures of this thing outside. So I went outside again, took some photographs of it, and just click, 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 and I turn around because I feel it following me. I turn around in the parking lot and I take a picture, and for a second I see a wall of white in front of me. It's the first time and only time I had ever actually seen it in the flash.
That's intense.
And then, I take this picture and it's literally just in my face, like a wall of fog.
Did you feel it? Did you have those feelings we described in past episodes?
I felt it the whole time. Wall of white, just this wall of fog in front of me for that instant that the flash goes off, and I was like, what? And I took 10 more pictures in that same space, trying to get it to duplicate, and couldn't get it to do it again. So I start walking back inside, and I'm taking pictures over my shoulder behind me as I'm walking inside. So when I get those pictures back, you see the wall of white that I saw with my naked eye, and then you see 2 more pictures of it following me back in along the walls. But it's right up against the brick wall, so it's not that great of a picture, but you can see the mist there. So I was able to finally get pictures of it. There's something about the outdoors. There's something about temperature or something that makes it show up. I would really like to... I'm going to dig out all the photographs that we took
I do agree with Dave too. I mean, I never had any luck inside. I mean, got some photos inside it, but not the place we missed.
Yeah.
I think it has something to do with air condensation, something where it's that reaction.
I think what
it's
we
possible.
need to do is we need to get all our original photographs because I dated them all, and go back and check the weather data for those nights.
That's easy to do now.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it back then.
Yeah.
Now. So let's recap. So we have multiple eyewitness accounts.
Yeah.
People who work there, Scullies who work there, seeing it themselves. Mike, the owner and sound guy, seeing the old gentleman upstairs at the bar who never returned. We have bouncers seeing a man literally push...
Bartender,
excuse me. Literally push the chair out from a table, get up, walk away.
I'm unclear as to whether that was a physical, actual chair moving or some sort of phantom chair.
Ah, interesting. Good. So we have that. We have our experiences. We have the phone ringing at the same exact time every single day without fail.
That can always be
where
like
it
some sort of
seems-
glitch with the phone or whatever.
Sure, but
Yeah,
you
but
and
you know
I
what?
both
Actually-
agreed that it did sound like the difference of being just dead air or someone being
But that
on
could
that
always just
other
be in our perception too.
side.
We always
But-
have to think of things as like what's the most likely possibility.
Hearing that story just makes me think. My cousin called me a couple days ago. He actually works in a nursing home. Him and his friends really didn't believe in ghosts or the spirit world. They started witnessing things.
At this retirement home?
At the retirement home, where people that they've taken care of have died and they've seen recently. But we'll get into that later. What I was getting at is an elevator. Always same time every night goes up and down, same time. And it just
it really makes you. Is there a
makes you
natural
think.
explanation? Is
It
there
makes you
with a
think.
phone,
is this trace energy causing some sort of reaction with
the thing with
elect-
the thing with a phone is it could easily be an automated call system somewhere with a glitch in it, just
Absolutely.
calling that number. It could be the phone itself with some sort
same
of
thing with
automated
an
test
elevator.
ring.
It could have a timer
But
or something.
yeah, and the
Who
elevator
knows?
too. But an elevator, you don't really think of as being on any kind of timer or anything. So
But it has
that's
to deal
kinda-
with energy.
kind of weird. Yeah, but I think again it still adds to the. Am I saying a ghost is calling at 2:10 a.m. every single morning? No, but it still adds to the mystery, the mystique of this building.
Right.
We have to get back to what I was trying to recap here. We have our recordings from the house speaker system of conversations being held in an empty basement, pool balls being knocked around in an empty pool room, which also happens to be the child laughter room. We have the child laughing at us. We have the energy reacting to us arguing over whether or not it truly exists within this location.
Right.
We have that dark black mass that was captured on video and proven untampered from the basement of the Morseland Music Room.
And Dave, for the first time, actually seeing something.
Yeah, actually,
And
the
seeing
only
the
time I
trace
actually
energy.
saw it
Yeah.
with my naked eye.
So what does all this mean? We were told back when we were heavily investigating this
Should I
location.
explain the whole situation?
We can, sure.
Well,
There was an Area 24 detective.
Right. First I tried to call. I wanted to find out if anything ever happened in this building. So the first thing I did was I called the county morgue, and I'm like, "Hey, I want to find out if anyone died in this building." They told me, "Well, we can't really do it by,
Address.
address. So maybe try the coroner's office. Call the coroner's office." I'm like, "Hey, I want to find out if they're like, well, you can't really do anything by. You're going to have to call actual police department." So I called the Area 24 detective. I talked to a detective.
Which is Rogers Park Police.
Yeah, I talked to a detective. We'll call him Smith. I don't know.
That works.
I don't even remember what his name was. And I'm like, listen, I know this is going to sound crazy. I am aware how this sounds. We're doing some research on this haunted location. There's been some weird things that happened there. I'm trying to find out if anyone ever died in this building. And explained to the detective what I was doing. And he very calmly said, he's like, normally I'd hang up on someone like you, but you sound like you're put together. You don't sound like a crazy person. And you sound like you're literally trying to find out something about this place. So I'm going to look into it. I'll call you back. Give me your number. Give him my number. Probably about a half hour, 45 minutes later, he calls back, says, I found an active file. July or January 13th of 1953, a woman's body was found in the basement of 1218 Morse Avenue, with her torso in the center of the room, arms and legs in each corner of the room, head removed, never recovered, Jane Doe, bizarre and ritualistic murder, still unsolved. That's all the information I have. And then he's like, I gotta go. And that was all the information I got. And every attempt I made to confirm it, I went through microfiche for the Sun-Times, the Chicago Tribune, every newspaper I could possibly think of. I was at the library for hours and hours going through microfiche for days before and days after. Nothing. No information whatsoever. And I called back the police department, and they're like, you can't bother us with stuff like this. And like, I could never get that story substantiated. But years later, I was walking by some random building in Lincoln Park or something, and I got this weird vibe from it. And there was a guy sitting on the front stoop, and I'm like, "Do you live here?" And he's like, "No, I don't. I'm just having a cigarette or whatever." I was walking by, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool," because I get this really weird vibe from this place. I do paranormal research and stuff, and this is kind of how I find places. I'll just, and he's like, "Oh, I got this great story for you. There's this place called Morseland Music Room, and there's a woman that was found in the basement." And he told me the whole story that we discovered initially.
So this is two stories. One from a supposed Area 24 detective who contacted.
Well, yeah, but the guy was literally relaying the story that we uncovered back to me, because he had heard about it through Morseland or through people.
From our investigation.
From our investigation,
research.
yeah.
Understood.
So he was just basically echoing back the story, which shows you, we don't even know if that's true. I don't know if the cop was just messing with me or what.
And this is where I need to interject. So, in preparation for this episode, all of us were researching our asses off, tapping all of our resources, some resources within the Chicago Police Department, trying to substantiate this story, trying to find hard physical evidence that this murder took place, and it cannot be done. Nobody could corroborate the story.
Yeah, I've had friends, Chicago police officers, started digging in the case, couldn't find anything, told some friends. Police friends in the force. They got interested. So they started digging even deeper. They couldn't find anything. They actually hired somebody, who used to be a recent couldn't find anything, which kind of leads in
it's a really
phone call that Jason kind of got.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember this, but we worked at Spaghetti Warehouse in Elk Grove at that time. And Spaghetti Warehouse, like a lot of restaurants, are decorated with all sorts of knickknacks and tchotchkes all over the wall. One of which was right over the micros machine was a calendar page from a calendar from January of 1953.
That's right. Oh my God! How did I completely forgot about that. So in preparation, yeah, that's right.
It was a Tuesday.
Tuesday, 1953. On or around January 13, 1953, this woman's body was found, head removed, never recovered, arms and legs removed, placed ceremoniously in each corner of the basement. Never solved.
Oh, and also
never proved who the woman was.
That center of the basement was exactly
where the cold spot
in the upstairs hallway
straight
was.
Up through the building.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well,
so here's where we're at.
The Rogers Park, Historical Society has nothing.
Nothing.
Okay, nothing.
But we know that it is haunted.
Yes.
Yeah.
We cannot.
But once again, I can't reiterate this enough. A haunting doesn't necessarily mean somebody had to have died.
Correct.
I don't think it does. I don't
what
think
I'm getting at, the Chicago police, the Chicago detectives, after a certain point, they have a hall of records where everything's on file at a certain date. There is nothing on record. Nothing on record.
So it's probably
in the Chicago database. But, Jason got a recent phone call.
I did, guys. And I wanted to surprise you with some of this information. A lady has stepped forward. I don't want to say her name yet. I could say her first name. Her first name is Dina. I'm going to leave her last name out. Researcher, historian, criminal investigator, media personality, had her own TV show. She is going to be working hand in hand with Chicago's own Supernatural Occurrence Studies from now on to do a lot of background research for us on people, on properties, on historical events. That's very good. When I was talking to her very recently, right before we were going to record this podcast.
Right when we found out in the Chicago database, there's nothing.
Right. Exactly. I said to her, listen, I'm at wit's end. Told her what we do, who we are. Said that we know beyond a doubt that this place is haunted. We have hard proof on audio, video, and photo that this place is haunted. Here's the story of a murder that took place, supposedly in this building on or around this date, January 13th, 1953. I need help. The very first thing that came out of her mouth, the words that came out of her mouth was, research Elizabeth Short. Elizabeth Short, better known as the Black Dahlia. Black Dahlia murder happened in 1947 in Los Angeles. Incredibly famous case, unsolved. So this researcher, Dina's advice to me was research the Black Dahlia. So I did that in preparation for this podcast. As it turned out, our Black Dahlia, it's a proven fact that she was romantically involved with a Chicago police officer. Chicago police officer was named a suspect in the Black Dahlia murder, but he was never charged. Is there a connection? Now, murder in the basement of Morseland and the Black Dahlia murder have striking similarities, namely the mutilation and removal of body parts. Chicago police officer, if this is true, and he is the actual killer of both,
maybe
our
there's
Morseland,
a reason.
Exactly, our Morseland, our Morseland body and the Black Dahlia cover up.
And it's also
Chicago cop could cover his own tracks.
It would also make sense that a lot of I think you see a lot of CSI episodes and stuff like that about this, where somebody kills several people in a similar way to establish a serial killer or a randomness to it, and then kill the person that they want to kill. To make it just look like a random act.
Right.
To eliminate themselves as a suspect immediately.
At this point, it could be. Who's to say?
Basically, maybe there's a reason that it's wiped out of the Chicago database and there's no history of it.
But this is the thing. Even
there's more.
Okay.
There's more. If it isn't the cop, if it isn't this Chicago police connection from L.A. to here, matching crimes, mutilations, body part removal, women, if that isn't it, I don't know if any of the listeners out there remember, but back in, I believe it was, what was the date? 1946. Sorry, guys, it's late. I'm trying to remember. Back in Chicago in 46, we had the lipstick murders. I don't know if anyone out there remembers this. A man was convicted. He kidnapped a girl, a young girl, 6 years old. This is one of his many victims. He kidnapped a young girl from her home at 5943 North Kenmore Avenue in Chicago's Edgewater neighborhood. Edgewater butts up against Rogers Park, where Morseland is. And it's an interesting side note that this little girl's home, this 6-year-old's home, is exactly 1.5 miles away from 1218 to 1220 Morse Avenue, Morseland Music Room, where our crime supposedly happened. Now, this little girl was abducted from her home. She was killed and dismembered. Her head, arms, and legs were also removed and later found discarded in various Chicago storm drains throughout the city. This little girl's murder and dismemberment took place also in the basement of an old building. The man's name was William Herons, and the victim, the 6-year-old girl's name, was Susan Degnan, Degnan. Not only do we have the decapitations, the body part removals, Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, was murdered just blocks away in L.A. from Degnan Boulevard. This man, William Herons, his victim, was Suzanne Degnan. There's the dismemberment similarities. There's the street name and victim similarities. William Heron handwriting samples matched handwriting samples to the person claiming responsibility for the Black Dahlia murders back in L.A. So we have this very strong connection of that 1947 murder in L.A. and the lipstick murders here in Chicago. Is it a Chicago cop? Is it a known serial killer, this lipstick murderer, William Herons? It's important to note, William Herons started in L.A. A couple years later, here in Chicago, the lipstick murder happens. All throughout that corridor coming from L.A. to Chicago through the 1940s and 50s, there was a string of unsolved ritualistic murders just like these two. The Ohio torso killings, for example. Whoever was doing these crimes were never caught, never apprehended, still to this day.
Wouldn't Ohio not be in that? Like, that's completely the other way.
That corridor coming down from L.A.
Well, yeah, but Ohio's...
It's right there, Midwest corridor there.
Yeah, but Ohio's 2 states east.
The point is, he was
I mean, he could have been going to, like...
serial killer.
He could have been going to New York or whatever. But that's really compelling. Like, now I'm wondering, is what that cop told me true, or was he just transposing details from something else into that location just to, like, mess with me or whatever?
I don't know. Or is it? Why is it still? Is it a cover up? Why? I mean, the questions are.
Well, back at at that time, I'm sure when unsolved murders happened like that, the media wasn't like it is today, where it's 24/7 all over the place. They probably didn't report every murder because they didn't want to create a hysteria and people going nuts. So when things like that happen, as you remember, like when the Grimes sisters were murdered, which is another famous Chicago case.
Barbara and Patricia Grimes.
The original story was that they had been basically bled out through micro cuts all over the body through this Jewish.
Are we gonna go there?
Well, that was the
might as well now.
That was the original story, and then later on they changed it. Or, like, the initial report said that, and then they changed it later. So
they said the same thing about the Peterson-Schuessler murders as well.
Yeah.
So you never hear anything about ritualistic murders back then.
Murders.
Yeah. And this is all speculative. But back in those times, they probably didn't want to graphically display this stuff, especially because
I would just read headlines from newspapers back then. If it bled, it led, and just think of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre editions of the newspaper. There was blood all over. I would say, sensationalized that sort of thing even more so back then than now.
I guess, but when it came to gangland stuff, it's like who did it. It's not a danger to the community. But when somebody's out there murdering people and there's an active investigation, it's probably in the best interest of the public to not make people terrified and not create hysteria and not put out a bunch of information there that might cloud the investigation. And this is why they keep a lot of details out of the media, so when they do find the killer, and they can
weed out the crazies.
They can reveal information that wasn't given to the media. You see this in the cop shows all the time and movies,
and that certainly could be it. It could be a cop did it with the Chicago connection to Black Dahlia. It could be the lipstick murder suspect, who was, by the way, caught, apprehended, and died in prison here in Illinois.
Or copycats.
Or copycats, yeah.
Or it could have been an active, cult-like thing.
There were, according to this researcher, there was an active cult through the 50s, 60s, 70s, up until the early 80s.
Like True Detective?
Not like True Detective. Committing a lot of these ritualistic murders in the Chicagoland area, and Rogers Park was
Season 2.
A notorious dumping ground, if not abduction ground, for this cult.
Well, regardless of all of that or what the story is, it is Morseland was the case that kind of made me come up with my most compelling theory, was that the energy that we're running into isn't necessarily a living person that died that is trying to get back to the light, or whatever the movie Hollywood BS about ghosts is.
Yeah. Don't go into the light.
My theory was that the energy is carrying with it certain imprints of the person that it came from, kind of like a DNA of their brain and their memories. And, you think when somebody's about to pass away or die, they think of their life flashing before their eyes. And if you think about, one of the three main things you hear about in hauntings is children, woman in white, that's very common, and the old man in the suit or with the briefcase with the hat on going to work.
What are those apparitions?
Those are all three. If your life flashed before your eyes right now, what would you think of? You'd think of your children, your wedding day, and your parents. Yeah. So I feel like these prominent images that show up when people experience them, for instance, if a woman died there, why is there this old man? Why is there the sound of the child? And my theory was that we are not seeing the manifestations of the people that died there. We're seeing the manifestations of the memories of the person that died there. So you're experiencing this woman's memory of her child and the memory of her father or her husband or whoever it was. And that's where it all started to make sense for me, that if we start to think of hauntings differently than invisible, you're not seeing the person that died, you're seeing the person that, or hearing the person that died or whatever, you're experiencing the memories of not only that person themselves.
And the motion and intensity, too.
Yeah, it could be emotion.
But yeah, you're not experiencing...
I almost died once, and right before that happened, my body was just pumped full of adrenaline. And everything's flashing before my eyes really quick. And, it could be the intensity,
But basically, I'm saying that you're not necessarily experiencing the person that died, but you're experiencing the memories.
You're not experiencing a ghost.
You're experiencing the memories of the person that died, or memories of the physical location that you're in, that are held there. Like, it's almost like a window in time. Like I always talk about how your perception of time is only in the human mind, right, and it really doesn't mean anything. And when you're outside of a conscious state of mind, when you're dreaming, for instance, you can have a dream where you're married to a completely different person, you work in a factory or whatever, and never at any point in that dream do you go like, I don't work in a factory and I don't know who this person is, because your entire reality is different in that dream. So right, in a 3-second dream, you can have a lifetime of experiences. Think of like Inception, basically.
That's off the reservation.
It is, but in a sense, it kind of had a realistic view of dreaming, about how time doesn't really matter in a dream. And this is why when you wake up from a very deep, very clear dream, you could be so disoriented, because it takes your mind a second to snap back into reality, because you could have dozens of years of memories within that small span of time that you're dreaming. So is it possible that this energy itself is warping our perception of time, and we're literally seeing into a different time frame? Literally like you're seeing through a porthole or a wormhole into a different time. I've actually heard stories, not personal stories, but I've read about people seeing hauntings of people that were still living. Wow. Like they walk into their kitchen and they see their mother cooking, and they're like, my mother lives in California, what the hell is she doing here? And things like that. So it could all have something to do with perception and not really the supernatural in the sense that we think of it.
Yeah, and that's really why why you are our theorist. That's a really compelling way to look at something like the Morseland, where we may or may not have this horrible crime, but yet we know we're experiencing these paranormal symptoms.
Right. Because the skeptic in me says, did that cop call me and just mess with my head by telling me some fake made-up story? But now that and that's what I thought for the last 15 years. But now with what you just brought up, it makes me think, okay, maybe this cop was telling me a story of something that sounds similar enough to something that really happened that he was just recalling off the top of his head or whatever.
And that's the thing. We just don't know. All we know is what we've experienced, what eyewitnesses have experienced. There's some new theories. Maybe we broke a new lead in the case. Who knows? But
and at the end of the day, it's fun investigating.
Absolutely, it's frustrating.
That's always what it's about.
Morseland is a frustrating case, but I think at that we could leave it there. Mm-hmm. If you guys have any questions, contact us. Submissions at sos-radio.com, or if you have any information about this supposed murder that happened at 1218 to 1220 West Morse Avenue in Chicago, Illinois, let us know. We're really curious. Or if you visited the bar, you're a patron of the bar.
Or if you knew anyone that lived there or worked there. Or
let us know, because the case is still ongoing for us. Because
I would really be interested
don't have the concrete proof.
Well, there were
the police record and photos.
There were businesses outside of
crime scene photos,
outside of the bar itself, which we did. We did talk to the owners of the Morseland that took it over after Bridget and Mike, and we were actually supposed to do a Halloween show there, and they kind of backed out of it at the last second and said, "We don't want the bad juju of doing like offsetting
the spirits."
Which was kind of like douchey, but also kind of like, it's kind of cool that you guys are like
at least
acknowledging,
accepting of this,
that it's there or whatever. But there were people that had businesses upstairs, and I'd really be interested, especially in that room,
the dojo, the Pilates studio,
to talk to those people to see what they've experienced, because they had to experience things,
absolutely,
especially when they were there late
and if you did, you're not crazy. We did too.
So if you know anyone that owned a business or because there was a Pilates studio there or a yoga studio, something to that effect, if you know anyone that worked there or owned it, let us know. I'm still trying to get a hold of the realtor, but they don't call back.
Good. So we want to throw money at you. We want to buy the place. Call us back. But I think that's a good stopping point for the first segment of this podcast. I would like to take a short 20-second break here and cue up Minister Sal, and we want to talk about Christmas. We want to talk about the pagan origins of Christmas. So we'll be back momentarily. And we're back. As I mentioned, this is a Christmas episode of the SOS-radio.com podcast. And for me, personally, especially having kids, Christmas is a wonderful time for my family. Always has been.
Not so much for mine.
Well, you're a Jew, so I can say that. Can I say that? It's okay to say.
Well, it's true.
Well, you said it.
He doesn't practice, but
yeah,
so
he's not a practicing Jew.
That's right.
You can never escape it.
But, it's a very warm time. It's a very humbling time for a lot of people. But there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people who believe that this beloved holiday is actually rooted in deep pagan traditions, and that the traditions we follow today, the Yule log, the Christmas tree, the presents,
it's not even a belief.
Santa Claus.
It's a fact.
To some.
No, it's an actual fact.
To some.
Well, let Sal explain it.
Minister Sal, the self-proclaimed pagan tradition enthusiast and expert. Where does our Christmas come from? Where do all these seemingly innocent, family-orientated traditions that we all celebrate come from?
Well, I like to first start out that many years ago, I was raised Catholic, altar boy, the whole 9 yards, but it never really sunk in. So years ago, I decided to start going on a soul-searching mission, if you will, to kind of understand why I don't believe in everything I'm being taught, or I don't feel what other people are feeling, especially growing up in an Italian household, watching my mother, my grandmother do the rosary, go to Mass. We're not eating fish, eating meat on Fridays and all that stuff. And I always felt it to be a bit silly. So I started reading, and everything I know is based on what I've read, what I've researched, and who I've spoken to.
So how long have you been researching pagan traditions?
I would say about 20, a little over 20 years.
20 years. So a lot of people would say that would make you an expert.
Yeah, I have about 100 books in my bookcase, as well as maybe another 50 in my Kindle. And now with the internet, it's been a lot easier to research some of this stuff.
So do you consider yourself Catholic? Are you Christian? Are you pagan? Are you Satanist?
I consider myself an atheist. I don't believe in anything.
Okay.
So I just believe in me. So I guess to some people that would be the Levian Satanism or Luciferian philosophy of where there's no actual deity except ours. Because like God, we create, we kill, and we can judge. So while I was reading and studying, I started reading about, I was one of those people like, why do we do the stuff we do today?
Yeah, why do we celebrate Christmas on December 25th and so forth, right?
So the roots of Christmas or the December 25th date is based on the winter solstice. The winter solstice is pretty much the rise of the new sun. So prior, when winter comes, we notice the days get shorter, it gets darker outside, and obviously what happens? Crops start to die, insects start to die, things go into hibernation, whatever. So there's a fear of death. And then around the December 25th, the new sun rises, new life rises, and everybody starts rejoicing and turns into festivities. So back in the day when we didn't understand science or whatever, we decided to wrap around deities. And prior to the Christ deity, thousands of years prior, there has been actually a handful, if not more, of deities. I'm going to go over a couple of them right now. So some of the demigods that celebrate the 25th one is Attis of...
December 25th.
Yes. Attis of Phrygia. He was born on December 25th, born from the Virgin Nana, was considered a father and son, predates Christianity by centuries, and his father was also a god.
That sounds like someone we know today.
Yeah. Another coming from the Asia East is Buddha. Buddha is, personifies the fat person, the belly, but obviously Buddha was considered a god at the time, or demigod. Also born on December 25th, born from the Virgin Maya. There was a star of announcement upon his birth, and he was also threatened by kings.
So what similarities are there with Buddha to our Jesus?
So far, the 25th, both born virgins.
What was the mother's name?
Maya.
Mary. Maya. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And they were also threatened by the king. Dionysus from Greece and the Roman virgin Bacchus, born on December 25th, born from a virgin, placed in a manger, was considered the god of the vine, and also was known from turning wine into water. There's other comparisons, King of Kings, all this other stuff, but I'm just kind of sticking around the Christmas thing.
Thank you. Yeah.
Horus of Egypt, which I'm sure a lot of us have seen, which is the hawk god. I'm sure you've seen the pictures. Also born on December 25th, born of the Virgin Isis Mary, born in a cave in a manger. His foster father was named Seb Joseph, was considered the anointed one. And then just Krishna of India also follows the same. And the closest to the myth of Jesus is Mithra, Persia. Mithra was also considered a mystery religion during the Messianic age of Jerusalem.
I think it's really interesting. I don't even know if you noticed, you said it. You just said the myth of Jesus.
Yes.
What does that mean?
I don't believe in it. I think Jesus was created based on all these different demigods for control. So during the Council of Nicaea, the Emperor Constantine allegedly had a vision or a dream of the Christian God, which allowed him to put together the Bible or the New Testament of the Bible and begin a new world religion where he was actually turned into the Holy Roman Empire and turned into pretty much world domination using the Crusades and the Spanish Inquisition. So he pretty much what Constantine was collected all the texts, put together the New Testament. He merged the text with old pagan demigods, which obviously allowed people to adapt more to what they're familiar with. So, and if you notice in the New Testament, the Judaism or the Jewish people are considered the enemies. The Romans are considered the heroes. And also these texts came out about 400 plus years after the legend resurrection. Also stated that Tiberius was worked with to push the myth. Tiberius was stationed in the Middle East. He worked with the Samaritans, which we also know are considered the heroes in the Bible, and to push against Jerusalem or the Judeans. So Crusades and Crusades used to promote a single religious order in the world through violence, and it was control the masses and merging with the pagans' beliefs for easy adoption.
Wow. So how does that relate to the symbolism, imagery, and practices we have today.
So
with this Christian holiday.
If you look at the way we celebrate Christmas, the only thing that would be considered Christian is the nativity scene set in front of people's house of a white Jesus and white family when everybody was Middle Eastern. But the Christmas tree was considered a pagan tree of life. So during the solstice, people were afraid of, plants dying. So what they would do is they'd bring a tree in and decorate it and try to, sustain its growth in fear of losing it and then replanting it. So it was considered a tree of life, and it was decorated, and it was considered kind of the midst of the house.
And today we have the Christmas tree.
The Yule log.
It's kind of the opposite. If you bring it in and let it die in front of you.
Well, it wasn't
work.
It wasn't put on a piece of cloth. It was actually planted in the house because back then, not everybody had wood floors. It was dirt.
How come we don't still? Why not bring in a potted tree? That would make more sense, wouldn't it?
But it's interesting now.
Because we throw them out.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing if somebody can develop a potted tree, maybe on a wheelie thing that you can bring into your house and you can decorate it, and then you can put it back outside.
It's a bad business decision.
And use it next year.
Right. Well, that doesn't make any money.
We got to
make money off this stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
Sal said it perfectly.
And then there's the Yule log, which is based off the Celtic pagan tradition of Yule. Again, symbolizing the log and nature and the rebirth of nature.
So Yule is the rebirth of nature?
Yeah. Okay. The log, and it's based from the Celtic traditions. Santa Claus, which actually, when you ask people what they look at Christmas, what do they associate with Christmas, Santa Claus actually outweighs Jesus. So Santa Claus is based off the Norse god Odin. So Odin was dressed in black, was on a flying sleigh, if you will, with fire-breathing reindeer. Saint Nicholas was a monk, is the patron saint or monk of Bari, Italy. Bari, Italy was invaded and became a lot of different Turkish people, and that's where Saint Nicholas was stationed.
Doesn't the Coca-Cola company have a lot to do with the modern depiction of Santa?
Yes, I'll get into that. Shut up. So what they did is they took Odin and Saint Nicholas and kind of made him the same character, which became the patron saint of Bari. And they kind of made it, I guess, less evil. They took away the fire-breathing reindeer, but he was still dressed in black and white robes, and he wasn't Odin no longer. He was now considered a saint and an actual human being. There was and I have to look back, either a Dutch or German poem about, what's the name of it again?
Was that "'Twas the Night Before Christmas"?
Yes. Which was the first time Santa Claus was actually introduced, and Santa Claus is actually the Dutch or Germanic name for this character. And the Coca-Cola company did find it. They did bring it to the United States in the 1930s and changed him from a Odin long beard looking character,
with black robes
to Coca-Cola Red, made him jolly, and the reindeers became your Rudolph, even though they all have German names.
So there's no more fire breathing.
No more fire breathing, right. And it became less, I guess, violent, if you will, or less offensive, or whatever you would call it. And he was giving out gifts, where back in the day it was about giving out life or giving out crops or whatever the case may be. Pretty much the gift of life. Caroling is actually the symbol of Jewish women running in the streets from rape and murder, because after the Council of Nicaea was the largest eradication of Jewish people next to World War II.
Wow, that I didn't know.
The biggest, I guess, correspondence of Christmas is Saturnalia, which is the festival of Saturn. Saturn was considered one of the gods of life, or was solstice, winter solstice, god of life. And during Saturnalia, which was a festivities of days, there was known as gift giving, where the rich would pretty much give gift to the poor, not so much in physical gifts, but in powers. You're no longer my slave. Now you get to live as a free person. Here's money, whatever the case may be. It was also a days of festivities, libations, and orgies, because back then it wasn't considered a sin to be orgy or have orgies or be homosexual, whatever. And this was all to the god Saturn for returning the sun.
And when was this celebrated?
This was during the non-Holy Catholic Empire of Rome. So thousands of years. This is all thousands of years prior to the Jesus myth.
So prior to the modern day calendar.
Exactly.
So do we know what date that festival was?
No, Saturnalia has always been. It's the Roman festivities of the winter solstice.
Winter. Okay, so it's winter.
Yeah, this is all around the winter solstice.
You did mention that. I missed that.
Right. So obviously, as time grows and passes, we went ahead and added gods and removed gods, whatever. But we're still doing the festivity of Saturnalia, except minus orgies, at least in my home.
And of course, I'm
going on.
I'm assuming there's a very similar thing going on with Easter being the
Yes.
spring solstice.
And we could talk about that in about 4 or 5 months. I'd be more than happy to come back to that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are like, you shouldn't say Happy Holidays, you should Merry Christmas. But that's a very ignorant thing to do because during this time, other religions are practicing their winter solstice. You have Ramadan, you have Hanukkah.
And that's the reason why they all have holidays at the same time is because it's a celebration of the winter solstice.
I thought I heard
The birth of the new
something
sun.
also about Jack Frost. Someone knocking on windows or like looking in houses, and that's how Jack Frost came to be.
No, that was the guy looking in your house or your wife and you having sex.
Son of a bitch.
That was me.
That's a Vario guy.
Yes, you have a big cock.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for using my
You
real
did see
name.
me.
Now I have to kill you. This fucking guy.
We don't have a last name.
There's like 3 guys in Chicago. And the other 2 my cousins.
Vaffanculo and El Piccione.
No, I mean, I'm not familiar with the Jack Frost character where it's came, but I'm sure over the years,
Some deity or
right.
ancient
I
spirit.
thought I might have heard something about that. I didn't know if it was true.
'Cause
Isn't there a movie about a killer snowman called Jack Frost?
I think that was with Tim Allen, and he was a happy snowman, wasn't he?
No, Tim Allen was Santa Claus.
Oh, Santa Claus. Back to
No,
full
Jack
circle
Frost
to
is
Santa
Michael
Claus.
Keaton. Was Jack
Michael Keaton, yeah.
Oh,
it was
God.
a Michael Keaton. There's 2 Jack Frost movies. There's
one's
like a happy
Yeah, one's actually.
dad
Oh, wow.
becomes a snowman one, which is
So, guys, we're leaving the
And then
reservation here. Let's bring
Yeah.
it back circle again.
yeah. Thanks, Joe.
Back to Minister
I
Sal.
brought up Jack
And we
Frost.
call him Minister Sal because he is actually an ordained minister.
Yes, I am an
guys. Just-
ordained minister of my own faith. The faith that the only God there is in your mirror. So there is no God but yourself. And I also did it because when gay marriage was legalized, there was a lot of people saying they shouldn't. And I look at it this way: if it doesn't affect my mortgage, I don't care. Let bygones be bygones.
I'll marry him either way.
I'll marry them either way.
check will cash.
Exactly.
Like
So, in conclusion, not to, there's so much, and I could do a full 2 shows on everything, but in conclusion is, we're all celebrating the winter solstice all across the globe. It's not just a Christian holiday. It's not just an Islamic holiday or Judean holiday or Buddhist holiday or whatever holiday. It's a holiday of just the new sun. And, all religions are all based off the constellations about the 12 months, and the sun is always the center of all the religions because that sun is the only thing we know brings light, brings life, and brings sustainability. And the moon, which is always considered the evil part of the religion, is brings out your nocturnal creatures. And let's be honest, most nocturnal creatures aren't cute and whatever. They all have the big
Yeah,
eyes,
there's the big teeth.
right, big teeth, big eyes, because that's how they defend themselves, as well as nothing grows in the darkness.
Also, explain the days of the week.
Days of the weeks are all named after Roman gods. Mm-hmm. Monday is actually the day of the moon. Sunday is the day of the sun. Tuesday is Mars. Wednesday is Mercury. Thursday is
Thursday.
well, yeah, but but that's Nordic. But in Roman, because in Italian it's Giovedì. I'm trying to remember which god that was.
It's okay.
Friday is Venus, and Saturday is Saturn.
Interesting.
Yeah,
It's
crazy.
incredible.
Yeah.
So how did and I'm just going to kind of steer it away from religion. Where's Krampus come into all this? And I mention it because there's a new movie coming out. But there is a Krampus, or there was
Well, it's
supposedly a
out.
Krampus.
I would say, and I don't know, so I'm just going to use theory and based on what I've learned.
I think it was Germanic.
It's Germanic, and I think in every other thing, there's always a good and there's a bad.
It seems like it's the antithesis of Santa Claus.
Basically, before coal in your stocking, there was a demon's going to rape you.
Or eat your kids or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that, wasn't it?
And yeah, so it's it's create order through fear. How do you
Watch
stop
that-
the poor from killing the rich? You scare the hell out of them with something they can't touch and they can't.
Watch that episode of American Dad. It explains it pretty well.
Yes.
Good. Any closing thoughts? How did it become so watered down and soft like it is today?
America.
Because a lot of it sounds like it's some pretty hardcore
Money.
I would say
beliefs, practices,
science.
orgies.
Science back then is not what science is today, but the Holy Roman Empire did a lot to kind of calm down, I guess, our normal human instincts, where they demonize sex, they demonize polygamy, and they demonize homosexuality and all that other stuff. And
they kind of invented all that stuff to begin with.
There was no invention. I mean, having more than one sexual partner was normal because we are animals. And no animal has one partner. There's no homosexuality amongst animals. It is what it is. A male animal having sex with another animal is a sign of domination. It's not a sign of homosexuality. So during the Holy Roman Empire, where they took like the gods like Mercury, covered his penis, and called him Saint Michael, but that was so by adding this prudish behavior, which calm people down, because back before it was okay to die for your gods. The Vikings figured if they died in battle, they would go to Valhalla. And today, when we look at what's going on with the Middle East and these people dying for Allah, we consider them to be, cruel and uncivilized. But prior to the Holy Roman Empire, everybody felt that way. No one was afraid to die.
I believe the only reason why there aren't more Christians doing stuff like that Planned Parenthood shooter in America is because there are laws here to prevent that from happening. And
but Christianity also goes off the.
But there's plenty of Christians I've met and known that would easily kill people.
We're not here
if they could.
No, and there is
validate Christianity or invalidate Christianity.
I'm just saying there's extremism in every religion.
The reason the Christianity extremism is not as prevalent as what's going on with Islam is the whole theory of Christianity is turn the other cheek. Do not fight back. And that played really well during the Roman Empire is don't fight back. Where before was fight for your God, now don't fight back unless you're only fight with your God, not against your God. So that's kind of why we see it more. I mean, to dovetail on what you're saying, yes, they're very vocal, and when you have a conversation, and I'm doing the quotes, and you start to, I guess, contradict what they're saying, they do get loud and they do get offensive. And I believe maybe the reason is they don't believe their own stuff. Mm-hmm. And they need you to go ahead and believe it so they feel like they're...
Yeah, it's literally like plugging their ears and going, la, 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 I can't hear you.
Right. I can't be wrong. My family's not rotting in the ground.
I imagine many people, eventually many people will be listening to this podcast, and there's going to be a portion of them that shuts it off when you start talking because they don't want to hear it.
Absolutely. Exactly. But you know what? In this podcast, everyone gets a fair shake, and I thought Minister Sal here did have some interesting insight into this holiday.
Yeah, I'm not
we're
against
in the thick of right now.
I'm not against religion. I feel whatever makes you go to sleep at night, whatever makes you feel. I just don't judge me for my disbeliefs, and I won't judge you for your beliefs.
You know what? I think that's a great place to end this podcast. We're way over our mark, and I'd like to close with a favorite quote of mine from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. "It is required of every man," the ghost returned, "that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men, and travel far and wide, and if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death." This wraps up this episode of the SOS-radio.com podcast. Merry Christmas to all, and to all, a good night.
And happy Boxing Day, Canada.
Well, thanks again, guys, for listening, and visit us online at www.sos-radio.com. Email the hosts at submissions@sos-radio.com. Call us at Chicago area code 872-5290-SOS, 872-529-0767. Follow us on Twitter at Chicago Ghosts. Follow Jason, SOS-Radio Night, on Facebook. That's Night, N-H-Y-T-E. Follow Jason Knight on Google+. Again, that's N-H-Y-T-E.
Thanks again, listeners. And as always, keep your head up, eyes open, and question everything.
Want to save your soul from hell, riding on our range. Cowboy, change your ways today. Oh. With us, you who's heard.
Yeah, it's you're not used to speaking.
I have a question for you. Have you ever licked your dad's mustache?
No.
Okay.
But I was going to say I licked your mom's, though. Is that weird? No.
It's kind of hot.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Oscar, I see you're going. You got like the little goatee going. Would you happen to be a swashbuckler of some kind?
I just started, yes. It's a 2-year technical college, so I don't see a lot of prospects in the field.
All right.
But I think in 10 years, with a lot of hard work...
Well, I think if you move to the Caribbean, there's a lot more jobs for swashbucklers down there.
Yes, and I hear that it's really nice weather-wise.
Yeah. Oh.
There's no propane.
Dick.
All that fuel gone.
Okay, so we're ready.
I'm already recording, so start whenever.
All right. What are we talking about today?
Christmas edition of the SOS-radio.com podcast.
A holiday edition.
It's Christmas. I hope this podcast find you, loyal listeners, wrapped in your favorite blanket or terry cloth robe, sipping on egg rock.
What about a snuggie?
Come on, what are you fucking with me for? Hello, listeners, and welcome to this Christmas version of the SOS-radio.com podcast.
You mean holiday?
No, in this house we say Christmas.
Holiday.
Xmas.
Go ahead and light a Yule
What
log.
about a hot cocoa?
Warm yourself. Get comfortable and get lost in those twinkling Christmas lights. Now,
Or Hanukkah candles?
close your eyes and prepare. I can't.
I was going to stop you anyway.
Can I just nose breathe through it the whole time?
No. I gotta call this fucking guy, Minister Sal. How the fuck am I
No way.
How am I gonna do
Mr.
that and
Sal.
keep a straight face? Minister Sal.
Sal Rosenberg.
How am I gonna
Keep
do?
the mic close to your
We
face. I
have
wanna
to
hear you
keep
laughing.
straight when we say that too.
Yeah, dude, it's fucking like hard to be perfect,
He's
man.
an ordained fucking minister. This guy. I gotta call him Minister Sal.
What denomination are you?
None.
He's a devil worshiper. No, just kidding.
I did so I could marry the gay people. Right now, I only married one Italian and a fat Mexican.
Who's the Italian?
My cousin Thomas.
Oh, wait, you got married already?
I married him and Dolores.
You didn't tell me.
I did on Thanksgiving. Fill out the paperwork here. Now you're a citizen.
Good for you.
Welcome to America.
Go fuck yourself.
I go make some pizzas, asshole.
Dave, okay. Will you let me get through it? You're not going to?
No.
Why?
I'm just going to whisper things. I'm going to do this whole episode like we're on NPR.
Yeah. Jack Handy. Please.
Someone has to be in work January 2nd.
Yeah, I was going to say, fucking, what are you talking about?
You know, the
Just
woman
like
at
me.
Popeyes yesterday, when I got my food, she wished me a Merry Christmas, and I had her arrested by Obama.
Stop eating at Popeyes, you fat fuck. All right, go ahead.
All right, cool.
I had to take my car to get the tires done, and Popeyes was next door.
Hello, loyal listeners, and thank you for joining us for this Christmas edition of the SOS-radio.com podcast.
And Hanukkah and Kwanzaa.
I'm your host, Jason Knight, and I hope this podcast finds you wrapped in your favorite blanket or terry cloth robe.
Or a snuggie, or like a slanket.
See, it's just not going to...
A fleece blanket?
He can't. He
bought
just,
at Walgreens?
He literally can't do it. He can't do it.
You know what the fuck?
Or maybe if you don't
That's what was
have
like fucking me up before, too.
if you don't have a blanket, maybe just like the cushions off your couch.
All right.
You got to let me through this,
Go.
man. Just let me get through this,
I just
please.
turned off his mic. Just go.
All right, well, thanks a lot, guys, for listening to us. And, yeah, I fucked up again. Son of a motherfucking bitch. Okay.
I told you. It's not easy, man. It is
Fucking
not
me out,
easy.
man. All right, thanks, guys, for listening. And if you guys want to contact any of us, you can get to us. Man, what the, I don't... Damn it, dude. All right, hold on.
I told you to practice, man.
I was fucking good that first time. And then I fucked it up. All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys. And if you guys want...
Guys.
Say guys 17 times. Say guys, hey
And
guys.
if you guys want to contact us at son of a bitch, dude.
You were fine. You were fine.
Sonovich.org or .net?
You were going to be okay.